What's kicking, everybody? We are back for another episode of Pickin Fights. I'm Keith, joined as always by Tom. Man, it feels good to say that. How are you, Tom?
I'm doing well. Got some of the Christmas gifts on display. Got the headphones. Had a microphone previously. Had to opt out of it. Still learning. Getting the. Oh my god! First show back. Can't even talk. Still getting the ropes. Still figuring some things out. Still getting my language back. Brand new coffee mug. Saturday morning. Sunday morning, should I say? We got fights this weekend. Next weekend. This upcoming weekend, and that feels great to say. It feels like it's been forever since we've been able to say that, since we've had a UFC card. And a lot has gone on in the UFC, Keith, since we last spoke, since we were last on a show.
Yeah, definitely. Dana White slapped his wife around a few times, and some fights were made. So, well, what's something you're most looking forward to from the UFC or like UFC related in 2023?
Well, I mean, there's not one single thing that I'm, I guess, most looking forward to. I mean, we could potentially talk about John Jones. Is 2023 the year that John Jones finally comes to heavyweight? He's been teasing it since 2013. Was his initial heavyweight debut targeted date. So just a little bit off there. Really interested to see what's going to go on with Dana White. Power Slap looks like it's about to be dead. TBS is going to have a real difficult time navigating marketing Power Slap. Probably can't be. It can't be Dana White's Power Slap anymore, right? Unless it's like some sort of like 4D chess that he's trying to play to bring awareness and attention to the slapping community.
Power Slap is alive and well in the Dana White household right now.
In the household, apparently, full-on MMA is fair game in the Dana White household, because there's no way that she's that aggressive with him and his first reaction is to just give her. Now, again, it wasn't like a hard slap, but still, you can't hit women, especially not in public. I'm not saying that you can ever hit a woman, but I'm saying definitely not in public when you're Dana White and you're the president of a billion-dollar company. That's absolutely a situation where you can't do that. But still, he gave her, it was almost like a downward thing. Like, it was very, very open hand, almost was complete fingers. But regardless, definitely. I'm interested to see, because obviously the UFC and the deal with ESPN that's going on, at least for right now. ESPN owned by Disney. ESPN has kicked people out for doing just a little bit of recreational cocaine on the side with no violence associated with it. Dana White probably has skirted getting outed by Disney for the cocaine fun, but I don't know if he'll be able to skirt the violence here, the domestic dispute. I don't think he'll be able to get past. You know what? He might be able to get past it. There's not a lot of heat coming down on him. Stephen A. Smith was really light on him in terms of
they're buds
talking about it. Everybody is. Everyone at ESPN and the way it's being covered. Have you seen that show with Jennifer Aniston called The Morning Show on Apple TV?
No, but I'm aware of what it's about. Is that Steve Carell in it too?
Steve Carell's in it. Yeah, it's basically like House of Cards, but for like TV
news,
morning TV, where everybody's like out for their own interests and they're playing this and they're doing that and they're making moves. It just makes you realize that, like, oh, that stuff's actually happening. Disney and ESPN realizes that Dana White unceremoniously leaving, would definitely be bad for the brand, and it would have an issue on the money that the UFC makes, the product that they're going to put out there. So they can't have him, kicked out. So they got in front of it. I think TMZ is related to Disney in some way, so they got in front of it.
Right.
You could tell by the way TMZ covered it, and the fact that there was already quotes by Dana White and his wife in the TMZ article that they had been prepared and had been, sitting on it. So Dana White is getting the red carpet treatment from Disney and ESPN. You could tell.
Oh yeah.
What's up, Cam? Good to see you, man.
Yeah, what up? It definitely makes you wonder who the next UFC president's going to be, because he's already mentioned retiring at some point. And, controversy only makes you want to get out of the public eye even sooner. So we'll see what happens with Dana now. But you mentioned John Jones making his heavyweight debut. I'm looking forward to that. After these past holidays, I'm kind of making my own heavyweight debut myself right now. So, I'm trying to get back into that New Year's grind of getting in the gym. Because, man, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's even, those are some hard-hitting holidays. One thing I'm really looking forward to from 2023, UFC related, is the acting debut of Conor McGregor in Roadhouse. I think that's going to be a pretty good movie. I saw some screenshots of that today, or like set photos.
Oh, him coming out of the water?
Yeah, yeah. It actually looks like it's going to be like a dope action movie. I'm kind of hyped for that. So we'll see what happens with that one. I'm looking forward to it. What do you think?
If anyone could play a role, it's Conor McGregor. You know what I mean? He's been playing a
Right.
variety of different characters and roles for the last 5 or 6 years. Let me go ahead and fix this logo in the top corner here. But yeah, if anyone could play a role and be a crazy person on camera, Conor McGregor's the first person I'm going to look at for that. So that's going to be interesting. Outside of the cage, inside of the cage, a lot of people are paying attention to. Alexander Volkanovski taking on Islam Makhachev. That'll
Yeah.
be especially interesting now that Khabib is saying that he's going to retire from MMA entirely. I didn't look too far into it. It happened fairly recently, but I'm not sure if he gave a date. Is he going to be in the corner for Islam there? And he got another cousin, Umar Nurmagomedov, fighting this weekend. Does that affect him at
Right.
all?
Yeah, I have no idea, but that's crazy after Habib. Some media outlets gave Habib MMA Coach of the Year, and then you look at Eagle FC too. That was his promotion, and that just kind of folded out of nowhere after like Kevin Lee and Diego Sanchez were supposed to be the heralds of that.
Oh, I didn't even realize it folded.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like official that it folded, but I don't. They haven't had an event in a while. They haven't announced any new events coming up. So, and he
just
hasn't
another
spoken about it at
failed
all.
Kevin Lee venture.
Yeah, pretty much. Well,
Kevin Lee, the king of 165 pounds, cannot catch a break.
yeah, he's had a tough go at it. The opportunities are there, but nobody ever seems to back him up. But yeah, I think that completely folded. So maybe that was a little bit like what pushed Habib in that direction too. It's like maybe I should just step away from this game entirely. But I don't know why he would step away from coaching, considering his fighters basically went unbeaten in 2022, and AKA is on a hell of a run right now.
Well, I mean, the thing is I think it's less than it's less about sports notoriety for him and for people of that region. I think I saw a quote, and I don't know if it's real or not. These days it's really hard to sort through all that stuff, but I saw a quote by him, which I think roughly translated to the point of like, oh, like when you are, even if you're a billionaire, you still only get one slice of bread, meaning like no matter what you have amassed, you still do, I guess, as if you were younger, or you don't eat more than your fill, in another way to say it. So I think he's saying like, listen, I got my wins doing it. I've got my wins coaching. I have my money. Like continuing to stay in this would just be a form of gluttony, which I know in the Russian Muslim world more generally is frowned upon. So, I mean, that could be the perspective. Like I said, didn't look into it too much. It could be, maybe his mom doesn't want him around the game at all. That, obviously that's a big, it's a big influence for him. So I'm not exactly sure.
Well, since he retired, he's taken on a little bit of a life of gluttony, clearly. I mean, he's packed on the pounds like anybody else would.
Yeah, but how long has he been fighting off? If that's his
Yeah.
natural body state, maybe. How long has he been fighting that off to keep a 210, 215 frame at 150?
I'm totally joking. Yeah, I totally support if you have a career where you have to cut weight, every 3, 4, 6 months.
Can't imagine.
Even if it's once a year, you have to keep that body like small and pure muscle. So I totally support him if any fighter wants to leave the sport. You don't have to be GSP. If you follow GSP on Instagram, he's still in spectacular shape.
He could fight yesterday.
Yeah, or tomorrow, and he does crazy workouts all the time. Yeah, it's nuts. So you don't have to be GSP. I was just joking around about Habib. But why don't we dive into this card? Oh, wait, what's that?
Well, real
Who's
quick,
your guys' top prospect? Yo, that's a great one. Jack Della Maddalena. I like that.
Definitely a good pick there. For me, I'm looking at Renato Moicano, especially now that you have Damir Ismagulov, who retired kind of out of nowhere. And that lightweight rankings set to be shaken up. You have Islam, well, maybe not, but you have Islam Makhachev coming in a little bit later this year to fight Alexander Volkanovski. I don't think that Volk is maybe going to get that one done per se, but lightweight has always been one of the most intriguing divisions. And when you have guys like Arman Sarukian calling to get guys like Justin Gaethje out of the top of the rankings for refusing to fight anyone who's not the top 3 or 4. Charles Oliveira potentially in talks to take on Beneil Dariush. Michael Chandler's always willing to fight somebody. Potentially that could be a Conor McGregor matchup in the summertime. Rafael Fiziev is in there. A lot of people are mad at him just for, not being as crazy as maybe he should live up to. But yeah, Mateusz Gamrot, RDA just moved up to 170, so he's going to come out of the rankings. You have Jalen Turner up there, who's just a fucking reach god when it comes to the 155-pound division. So there's a lot of interesting things that are going to go on at 155, and I think if you are Renato Moicano, with your experience, your jiu-jitsu, and where you're finding yourself at this point in your career, you could be looking at, a Charles Oliveira type trajectory. So I'm really excited about him.
Yeah.
Grant Dawson is a fun fighter. I'm just looking at the rankings here, but again, that Arman Sarukian, we were talking about Damir Ismagulov. There's always Guram Kutulidze, who unfortunately, I think Guram just actually had to have a staph infection removed from his elbow, which is unfortunate. But at 155, instead, I'm sorry that you asked for my top fighters, and I'm just saying like those unknown kind of round robin folk that we were always talking about. Sarukian, no more Damir, but Guram Kutulidze, those type guys. I'm really excited for them.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to Ilia Topuria in 2020.
That's another one.
Yeah, I think he's the guy. I mean, just after what he did to Bryce Mitchell, I think he's the guy that I'm really – I don't know if he's cracked the rankings yet. I can't remember, but he's the guy.
Yeah, he's at 9.
Oh, okay. Wow. Yeah. I mean, after that Bryce Mitchell fight, though, that's the guy I'm really looking forward to seeing just break through even more so and become, because what the skills and the power that he possesses, I really think he could be a household name. And it's such a unique name too, Ilia Topuria. It flows. I think if you get the pundits on ESPN saying Ilia Topuria over and over again, he's got a great personality that really helps him build fights too. He's in a lot of the drama and the beef with the big names. So I think with all those factors combined, you might actually see him lined up for some pretty big fights this year. And I'm looking forward to that.
That's a real good one. That's a real good one, especially considering he's sitting at 9. You have Giga Chikadze, who I think Ilia Topuria can kickbox with. Maybe not quite as fast, but definitely strong in the hands. And I think would have a good time if he took down Giga Chikadze. I think he's strong, but Giga's hard to take down. Not everyone's going to make it as easy as it looked in his last fight. But Calvin Kattar is still up there, who's great. Chan Sung Jung, who talked about potentially hanging it up. Josh Emmett fighting for the interim belt here. Arnold Allen, can't forget about him. Brian Ortega still in the mix. Yair still in the mix. Max Holloway, who knows what he's going to do. 55, and you have the champ Volk. And it's question mark in terms of what's happening at the top of that division too. So featherweight is primed for looking good, and also bantamweight just the same with Aljo up there at the top. Sean O'Malley, I think, is going to take on the winner of Marlon Vera. Who's Marlon Vera fighting? He's taking on Sanhagen, right?
Corey, yeah.
Yeah, that's another fantastic fight. So the UFC front part of the year is already looking pretty strong, and I can't wait to see what they're going to do in 2023. A lot of good fights to look forward to there, Cam.
Yeah, I got one more guy that I also don't believe has cracked the rankings yet, and it's a guy I've spoken about a lot on here before. He took a bad loss to Mark Zhukazi in his last fight. But that is Vyacheslav Borshev, Slava Claus. Really looking
always
forward.
Got to talk about Slava Claus.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to seeing what he does in 2023. He's an incredible kickboxer. Opened his UFC career debuting with liver shot knockout or TKO of, I believe, Cody Stamen maybe. But that was incredible. Like, what a way to start your career in the UFC. I just look forward to seeing what he does, because he's got crazy hands and super accurate, super powerful. So looking forward to seeing what Slava Claus does this year. All right, so let's dive into this card. Before we do that, just want to ask everybody, if you want to interact with us, like you just saw, like we just spent however many minutes on a question in the comments. Please comment down below. Talk with us in the chat. We love to, have conversations with you guys. Definitely like the video if you enjoy this or our picks help you. Please like it. And if you enjoy our content and you want to support us, please subscribe. It really helps us out over here. Also, follow us on Twitter and Instagram @_Pickin Winners. That's like the main page that, our whole team is on. We've got the football guys. Get their picks for today. They're on our YouTube as well as our Twitter. And check out our Spotify. If you can't listen to, or if you can't watch a full YouTube video or be with us here live, listen to us on Spotify, whether it be on your run in the park or when you're driving to work, one of those things. Also, follow us on our personal Twitters as well. So mine is right under me. Tom's under him. I'm Pickin Keith. And Tom is at Pickin Fights Tom. All right. With all that being said, let's dive into our prelim notables, as we always do. And I've just got one this week. It's a guy that I've picked in the past as a prelim notable. And that is Alan Nascimento. And I'm a big fan of his. I'm a big fan of everybody over at Shoot to Box. I know there's a couple of guys from Shoot to Box on this card, but Alan Nascimento is a guy that's won me some money in the past. Super fast hands. He's got that. We're starting to see Shoot the Box develop their own style of Muay Thai, so to speak, right now, and they all have incredible jiu-jitsu coming out of that gym. So he's a very well-rounded fighter, and pretty heavy odds right now. A little bit all over the place on some books. Like you're seeing some in like the minus 300s. You're seeing some at 4 or 5. So, I just, like I said before, follow me on Twitter because there's going to be some prop I'm feeling later on in the week. Right now, kind of feeling the TKO win, but we'll see how it goes. I'll keep you updated on where I stand, but that's my prelim notable. I think that's a really good fight to watch because Shoot the Box is producing some really good prospects right now. What do you think, Tom, and who do you got for your prelim notables?
Yeah, Alan Nascimento, I like him against Carlos Hernandez. We were talking about it a little bit earlier that there's a couple Shoot the Box fighters that I am a little bit concerned about on this card. Mainly, let me pull it right up here. But I like that Alan Nascimento pick. I think he's going to get it done over Carlos Hernandez. But speaking of Shoot the Box, you also have Shoot the Box fighter Mateusz Mendonca that's taking on Javid Basharat. And that one that I would feel a little bit more concerned about if you're the Shoot the Box fighter. Let me get this off the screen. I've been trying to get back into the swing of the things of editing and talking and all of that stuff. So bear with me.
Sorry.
Appreciate it.
Killing it, Tom.
No. Appreciate it, guys. Yeah, Javid Basharat. You may remember Javid Basharat as the guy who he was talked about as like on his Dana White Contender Series fight. Everyone was like, oh, like cheer for Javid Basharat, I guess was the sentiment because the guy he was fighting had called him a terrorist in the face-off. Right. And then he went out there and just annihilated him over 3 rounds. And then following that, Trevin Jones, he got the win over Tony Gravely following that just 2 months ago. So Javid Basharat has fought a lot of really good competition. He has a jiu-jitsu style, he's got strong jiu-jitsu, but the way that he approaches is a very he throws a lot of feints, so it's really hard to know when he's coming. The Snow Leopard is his nickname. He's still young at 27 years old, and he is a 69-inch reach. He's looked really good, and he's fought UFC caliber competition, and he's looked good in them. The only thing that I would say is that he hasn't shown the ability to get out there and get finishes. Tony Gravely, Trevin Jones are not two guys that have been known for like their chins or their absolute durability. So going out there and not getting the finishes is not necessarily a knock on Javid Basharat, but it's not the plus that you'd be looking for. And going against a guy Mateusz Mendonca from Shoot the Box, he's 10-0. He's got a really stiff knockout over Ashik Ajim, who's not a great prospect in and of himself, but Mateusz fights like a typical guy out of Shoot the Box. So looking at the lines here, have him at plus 280 to a Javid Basharat minus 350. And a guy making his UFC debut, typically, I wouldn't be as afraid. But being that he's from Shoot the Box, he's training with guys like Charles Oliveira. He's got that similar style. He's got ability to knock people out. And I don't know if he's going to be as able to be susceptible to the feints of Javid Basharat because of the level of competition that he's fighting on a daily basis over at Shoot the Box. So I don't know why I'm talking about this for so long, because I don't want to pick Mateusz. I would still kind of lean Javid Basharat just because of his experience inside of the UFC that can't be understated. But I guess more or less a cautionary tale about 2 undefeated fighters, 2 up-and-coming prospects that the UFC probably should be high on and you don't typically see getting matched up for a debut. So I would caution everybody, if you were thinking about taking that fight, I would caution you that, hey, maybe slight pause on that. But you brought up shoot the box, so I wanted to comment on it. It was something I've been thinking about all week when I was looking this up. I want to lean Javid Basharat, but I would definitely stay away from it if I'm betting on it. I like Alan Nascimento, your pick, though. I would definitely throw some money on that. And while we're talking about it, I don't want to ramble on too long. Is there anything that you want to comment about what those two fights? I know you said your piece on the first one.
No, I'm 100% with you on the second fight. I mean, not everybody that comes out of shoot the box is a lock this week. And, yeah, I'm 100% with you. And so carry on if you have any more, because Alan Nascimento is my only one this week.
All right. So my other one is I like Dan Argueta this week. Dan is a guy who hit the wrong button. Dan is a guy who last time we saw him, he was going against Damon Jackson. He took that fight on short notice, actually up a weight class at 100 and 145 pounds. Typically, he had fought at 135 pounds, but came in here on short notice against Damon Jackson, a guy who's going to be at the top of this card and talk about very shortly, a guy who's known for his grappling ability in jiu-jitsu. That's what Dan Argueta specializes in himself. You remember from the Contender Series, he lost on the first round in, but I like Dan Argueta a lot. I think he's going to have the ability to get it done against the UFC newcomer, Isaac Dulgarian, Midwest Choppa. He's 26 years old, so he's young, relatively inexperienced in his own right, fighting at a Glory MMA, so he does have that going for him. But when you just look at the type of people he's fought, first of all, he's only 5-0. But when you look at the level of people that he's fought, he's got a 1-1 win, 2-3 win, 0-0, 2-2. And these are the level of opponent that he's finishing, people who are new to the sport themselves. Once you get to people, even TJ Britton, 7-2, that's a largely fluffed up record. So you're going to be going from a guy on the outside. I think FNC or FAC, I think that I remember doing my research somewhere, I've seen that this is it's Glory MMA, so of course he's going to be have close ties to and I'm blanking on the name right now, but he just got kicked out of the UFC, kicked out of kind of MMA more generally. Who am I talking about for betting on fighters? James Krause. Why the fact that I couldn't get that name was absolutely embarrassing, but James Krause fires, so he's going to be displaced here, kind of looking for a new gym, or no matter what is actually happened, this is not what you want when you're in a fight camp here, trying to make your UFC debut with already having a background of maybe some sketchy competition. I like Dan Argueta a lot in this fight, and he's one of the ones that I would feel pretty confident laying some money on. Of course, hopefully I didn't jinx it for us, proclaiming my confidence in that pick, but I do like Dan Argueta. I like him just for his own ability, but yeah, I like the matchup for him too. Isaac Dulgarian's a guy who's going to be a jiu-jitsu guy, and he has all right standing ability, but if you're able to go in there and contend with guys like Damon Jackson, shouldn't be too big of a problem for you, especially against a fighter who's just been displaced. So there's that, and then there's one more fight. Sorry to ramble on anybody. If it's too much, just fast forward. I don't know if anyone's like me, but I like to listen to podcasts at like 2 times speed. It might be hard with how fast I talk, but to each their own. There's another one that I wanted to look at, Jimmy Flick against Charles Johnson. I would be really interested in Jimmy Flick. He's the guy who he's known for in his UFC debut, pulled a flying knee and actually, or not a flying knee, pulled a flying triangle. And he got it while in the air and secured it on the ground, got the win over Cody Durden. That's right. Cody Durden's a guy who's not shown to be impervious to, quick endings of fights himself, even when he's winning. But still a good win against a good opponent in your UFC debut. And then he went and he retired. He just he said, I made it to the UFC and I made $100,000 that year. I guess it wasn't fighting, but he made $100,000 that year and he made it to the UFC. So he decided to call it quits. And then, like we saw, that was under 2 years ago. He said a couple months ago, he went to his daughters and he said, hey, what do you think about daddy fighting again? And they said, yeah. So he started training. So I like Jimmy Flick. I like his ability. He's a fighter who will get beaten up and then somehow find a way to pull it out. Not impervious, like I said, 16-5 record. He's got some wins got some losses at lower level of competition, but always been a guy who's been fun to watch, and he's gotten it done. 10-1 in the LFA, 6-0 submission, arm triangle choke in his Contender Series debut. So this is a guy who's going to go out there and he's going to try and submit you. But Charles Energy is a guy who, against Zaglas Zumagulov, he got out of there with a win that he probably didn't deserve. Zaglas probably got that win, but he went in there and he competed with the likes of Zagosumagulov, and this was only 2.5 weeks ago. It didn't take a ton of damage. Both guys threw a lot, but not a ton of shots that did a ton of damage. You're going to be concerned about 3 weeks later coming into a fight. Charles Johnson, I think, is just a little bit more prepared on this time for this bout here. Tiger Muay Thai is his primary gym, has about the same reach. He's going to be a little bit of the bigger guy at 5'9" against Jimmy Flick, who's 5'7". And I think the biggest deciding point here for Charles Johnson is the fact that he's been training and Jimmy Flick hasn't. I know it says minus 400, which isn't a great price tag. I don't think Jimmy Flick's going to go out there and finish Charles Johnson and vice versa. So I think taking the over on this one, Charles Johnson by decision or points, I think would definitely behoove you and probably lead to a win there. So with that being said, those were my prelim locks. Let me just scan this one more time. We talked about Charles Johnson and Jimmy Flick. Priscilla Cachoeira, I think, is going to get the decision win over Sijara Eubanks. Dan Argueta over Isaac Dolgarian. We talked about Alan Nascimento. Matush Rabicki is taking on UFC newcomer Nick Fiore, 6-0, but Fiore has some sketchy competition, some really sketchy competition, so I would take a look at that one. And then you got Claudio Ribeiro, who just wings punches and has almost no MMA striking defense whatsoever against Abdul Razak Al Hassan, who has put people away in the past but hasn't lately, and has a little bit of UFC acumen to his cred, but that's one I would stay away from as well. So those are my prelim notables.
Yeah, I like the Charles Johnson pick a lot, and boosting it up by going for decision. I like that. I like that quite a bit. So I'm going to tell you there, even though I am a fan of Flick, it's unfortunate though. He did step away for quite a while, but we'll see. He does have the ability to surprise people. But I'm going to back you with the Johnson pick. All right, so we're going to start
me on a bit of a roller coaster there.
Yeah, true.
All right, main card.
Umar Nurmagomedov versus main card.
Here, wait, hold on.
Ready?
1 second. Oh. Had to get the time in there for the transition. Main card picks. UFC Vegas 64. Is that what this is? Fight Night 218. Who knows?
Fight Night, Gastelum, Imavov. All right.
Can I just say that the UFC needs to come up with some sort of universal naming system for the UFC Fight Nights? Are we doing UFC Vegas 68? Are we doing UFC Fight Night 2, whatever? Like, I don't care what it is. Can we just figure it out, please, instead of going by 12 different names?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think when they signed a deal with ESPN and it was on ESPN Plus, I really think they should have gone with like UFC Fight Night +1 or some shit like that.
It was for a while. It was like UFC on ESP. Like they do UFC on ABC, like 7.
Right.
Like,
well, UFC on ESPN is when it's free on ESPN, and UFC on ABC is when it's the afternoon card for free on ABC. So I don't know. There's too much shit. But if they're gonna name those like what it's on, then like the ones that you need like ESPN Plus to watch the full card. I think they should have just called those like ESPN, UFC Fight Night, ESPN Plus like 1. Or
give us some sort of like standardized naming mnemonic here. Because just fucking throwing whatever you want at the wall is not working.
Or you do KISS, like keep it simple, stupid, right? Like, dude, this one could have easily been fucking Fight Night January 15th, 2023, or whatever it is, 14th. Like, why go complicated?
I don't care what it is. I don't care what you name it. Just fucking name it one thing and keep it that.
Right. I think if they would have kept it simple though, and just not, they just try to do too much sometimes. Whoever's like their marketing guy needs to take a chill pill and, focus on making cool posters, not so much like trying to name things 30 different things. But fuck it. I digress. All right. So, main card, who do we got first? Umar Nurmagomedov versus Raoni Barcelos. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, cool. I'm actually having some technical issues over here myself. For anybody at home trying to figure out why you keep seeing my hand on the screen, I'm having a computer issue, so I'm going off my phone. So, all right, Umar Nurmagomedov, obvious, easy pick, clocking in at like -500 to -700, depending on your book. So we're going to find some props to make this a little bit more profitable. And I'm thinking he wins this one by another rear naked choke, make it 3 in a row. he's definitely going to remain. Oh, so that would be to win by submission. But I think he's going to remain undefeated this week. Hard to bet against anybody with that last name. Great wrestler, just like his cousin Habib. He's got that smothering Dagestani style that they learned drinking bear milk in the mountains. I think he's got a way better stand-up game than Habib. We're starting to see this, evolve from the Dagestanis lately. You saw Islam drop Charles with a mean hook. Good win for Umar recently came against Brian Kelleher. I'm actually a Brian Kelleher fan. I think he looks like, like a white supremacist in a jail movie. I think, he's got some pretty anyways, fun guy to watch, in my opinion. Not everybody likes him, but Umar just dominated him, won by rear naked choke in that fight as well. Just absolutely killed him in the first round. I don't think Raoni Barcelos is up to task. He does have a win against another Nurmagomedov in his history books, but that's actually Said Nurmagomedov, who has no relation to the Habib family. I think Umar Nurmagomedov, pretty obvious. He pulls out an easy win this weekend. So I didn't really even need to spend that much time talking about that fight, but Umar Nurmagomedov, and I think he gets it done by submission. What do you think, Tom?
All right, just let the record show that trying to do all of this stuff at the same time is not something that I should do in the future, or at least I have some learning to do if I'm going to be able to do it in the future. There's a lot of clicking around and doing various different things. Listen, Raoni Barcelos is going to be the best level of competition that Umar Nurmagomedov has fought in the UFC thus far by far. Coming off that win over Nate Maness, he absolutely dominated Nate Maness, but Nate Maness doesn't have the level of jiu-jitsu or grappling that Raoni Barcelos does. Raoni has a really strong takedown defense. He reminds me a lot of Jose Aldo in the way that he fights, and that makes sense, right? He's a Brazilian striker, and he has really fast leg kicks, some of the fastest leg kicks in the UFC, which you could say the same for Jose Aldo. At this point, Raoni Barcelos is going to have probably the edge when it comes to striking, and that's because of his hands. Umar Nurmagomedov has he's like the next iteration of the Nurmagomedov family, because like with him or like with Khabib, Khabib was going to plot forward. He was going to come after you. He was eventually going to take you down. You weren't worried about kicks or the hands really, outside of the takedown, which would leave those open. Same thing with Islam Makhachev. We're seeing him get more knockdowns because people are afraid of the takedown, and he has overhand rights and things that will put people down. For Umar Nurmagomedov, he has some of the best question mark kicks in the UFC. It's like if you combine Khabib Nurmagomedov and Stephen Wonderboy Thompson's lower half, because he can go out there and he can throw these question mark kicks from such tight angles and just go over top. Raoni Barcelos is going to know, and he's going to be cognizant of that. I don't think we're going to see a knockout here because of the leg kick, but it's something that Raoni Barcelos is going to have to contend with, and everyone else is going to have to contend with that makes Umar such a puzzle. And I think even though Raoni is going to have a level of striking to be able to beat Umar Nurmagomedov on the feet if that happens, I just think that Umar is going to eventually get that takedown. He's going to be relentless. He may not get it the first time. He may not even get it the second time. But I think when people fight people like the Nurmagomedovs, once they get in there, they realize, oh, this guy actually has a level of strength to their grappling that you can't recreate outside of the cage. So when Volk talks about the fact that he has a bunch of people coming in fresh, yes, they may be coming in fresh, but they still don't have the level of strength and the grab and the pull and the grip that the Nurmagomedovs are going to have. And I think that's what's going to be the biggest problem for Raoni Barcelos. I don't think we're going to see Raoni on the ground just getting totally taken advantage of the way we saw in Nate Maness. But I still think, minus 500. I think it's maybe a little hefty, but it's probably spot on considering Nurmagomedov, considering the leg kicks, considering the stand-up ability is much improved from his cousin. And, Raoni is not going to offer a level of grappling to be able to contend and defend against a Nurmagomedov style of wrestling. And top pressure, and then you add the leg kicks, and it's an incredible puzzle to solve. So, like you said, didn't maybe necessarily have to go that in depth on it. It's going to be Umar Nurmagomedov as the pick. I'm going to take it to decision.
All right, yeah, okay, by decision. That's it. Well, regardless, both of our picks really they boost up that steep money line. So next up, we've got Ketlen Vieira versus Raquel Pennington. And Ketlen Vieira's last two fights have been against women who, are somewhat of a, from a bygone era. You have Holly Holm and Misha Tate, who are both floating around like 36, 37, and then 41 for Holly Holm. Both really associated with Ronda Rousey's eminence of the UFC. I think Ketlen looked really well-rounded, and I'm sure you'll agree, very good, very well-rounded against Holly Holm. She possesses some really good stand-up that actually made Holly pretty uncomfortable and shoot for takedowns. And Ketlen Vieira defended all them really well. Not that Holly Holm is a wrestler. She's quite the opposite. But really good takedown defense for Ketlen Vieira. She puts her opponents in a lot of trouble with her submissions as well. That's one of her favorite things to do is like defend a takedown, instantly counter with a submission. And then she also walks opponents down and snaps off a couple of good jabs every now and then. Pretty good against the cage, clinching opponents. I think she's pretty tough and well-rounded. And when it comes to the money line, this is pretty tight. So I think I'm actually going to stack a couple of units on Ketlen Vieira this weekend because I think Ketlen makes Raquel Pennington also look like she's from a bygone era as well this weekend. Raquel Pennington had her shots in the past and, was pretty successful, but I do believe that this is Ketlen Vieira's fight. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you. I'm going to be siding with Ketlen Vieira in this one. Raquel Pennington is a boxing stylist, but both of these people have a common, both of these fighters have a common win. I believe it's a win, but they have a common fight over Holly Holm. We're looking at, okay, so that's what I thought it was. Raquel Pennington, she had her fight against Holly Holm back 2 years and 10 months ago. So that would make it back at the beginning of 2020. And a lot of that fight, that loss came from Holly Holm doing what Holly Holm is sometimes known to do, and that's to back you up against the fence and get a lot of control time up against the fence in a clinch, attempting a takedown. Ketlen Vieira is a little bit more similar in the style that she's going to be strong and she's going to be able to push Rocky Pennington back up against the cage. And if that's how the MMA judging is going to go, that amount of siding is maybe going to go to Ketlen Vieira because I think she's going to be stronger here. Raquel Pennington also has the ability to push people back up against the cage. And that's why I'm not as excited for this fight. You talk about Holly Holm is a cage pusher, I guess, as a term. Raquel Pennington does a very similar thing, and Ketlen Vieira would need to. She'll do a very similar thing. These women that, I guess, to their credit, they know what's going to win them points and what's going to win them, favor with the judges, and they're going to go out and they're going to do that. So credit on them. It's not the most exciting thing in the world, but I think if we're talking about pure MMA, Ketlen Vieira has the ability on the ground that's going to kind of bumper ahead of Raquel Pennington in this way. I think both of them, when it comes to standing and boxing, I think Ketlen Vieira, is going to be able to do what she needs to do when it comes to boxing to contend with Rocky Pennington. I don't see this one being finished by either girl, so I'm definitely want to take this one by decision. I'm going to go Ketlen Vieira by decision. I think there's just more ways for her to get it done. I think she's a stronger fighter, so if it does get pushed up against the fence for a long period of time, I think that only plays a little bit more towards what her style is going to be. She's going to have the jiu-jitsu as a background, and then when it comes to striking, it's too close there to give Raquel Pennington an advantage. That's going to make me confident in picking her for a decision. So for all of those reasons, I'm going Ketlen Vieira by decision to get it done here. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. I think maybe this line being even is a little bit predatory on Vegas's part because personally, I mean, listen, I might be putting my foot in my mouth here come Saturday, but I don't see, like you said, many ways for Raquel Pennington to win. But Raquel Pennington does have like a little bit more, name recognition. And oddly enough, where I've heard her name the most over the past year in one setting? Take a wild guess.
At work.
No. That would be funny though. I do have a blue collar job and work with a lot of guys,
and her name is Rocky. It's gonna.
But no, actually, it was. So I followed the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial somewhat closely.
Oh yeah, her friend, right? Her friend, Raquel Pennington.
Best friends with Amber Heard, and
not this
that trial.
Different Raquel Pennington, right?
No, the same.
Oh, I thought it was a different Raquel Pennington.
No, it's the same. One and the same.
Get out.
Fighter. Yeah, because you would hear during the trial, either side's judge would be like, "Oh, well, was Rocky there to witness you putting your hands on Johnny Depp and like stuff like that. And it was pretty interesting. I think Amber Heard, she learned a couple of moves from Raquel Pennington and used them on Johnny Depp. You know, you saw some of the pictures of him in that trial. He looked pretty banged up. But you know, you're allowed to say that though because he won. So, but yeah, that was just wild tidbit of information. You know, a good Jeopardy question for you. You know, and super strange that the two of them would be best friends like that, and that she would be staying in Johnny Depp's house. But
well,
yeah.
with that being said, it would be fantastic if Ketlen Vieira got as fucked up. Well, not as fucked up. That I'm venturing into crazy territory. But if we're talking about in a fight, and if Raquel Pennington taught Amber Heard the moves that fucked up Johnny Depp,
right?
I don't think Ketlen Vieira is going to have such a disparity in fighting acumen in this fight. I think we would be lucky if we got action.
Yeah, yeah.
That was in that Amber Heard fight. I think this is going to be a lot of clinch control time up against the cage, or throwing strikes at each other, far outside each other's range. I don't think this is. I would be shocked if we get together next week and we're like, how about that Ketlen Vieira Rocky Pennington fight, huh?
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Time will tell. But yeah, that was my interesting tidbit of information. You know, that was like my TMZ moment for this episode. All right, so next up, who do we got? Pueli Soriano versus Roman Kopylov, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, I think Punahele Soriano has like super legit power. Very nasty combinations. He's turned some pretty decent fighters into like looking like potato sacks with the way that he dropped them. You know, one guy that comes to mind, good knockout over him, Dushko Todorovic. Good knockout by Punahele Soriano of him. And then Roman Kopylov really has like a loss on his record that still kind of leaves a bad taste in my mouth, and that's Albert Duraev. I am not a fan of Albert Duraev. I don't think he's a good fighter, in my opinion. I'm sure after we clip this and somebody that's a huge fan of his looks it up, looks up his name, sees that I'm talking shit, they're going to be like, well, you've never stepped into an octagon. I don't care. I've never, been made look the way that he looked when he fought Joaquin Buckley in my entire life, street fights or anything. So Albert Duraev, I might as well be. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not a better fighter than him, but I really don't think he's UFC caliber. Despite that, it should be an entertaining fight because I think both of these guys have the ability to, stand in the middle, trade, or at least, just throw hands. And but when it comes down to it, I think Punahele Soriano has a way better chin than Roman Kopylov. We've seen Punahele eat some bad shots, and he's willing to hang in there and really throw. And I think if these two guys do that, you're going to see Punahele Soriano come out on top, standing over Roman Kopylov. What do you think about that one, Tom?
Yeah, I am going to have to side with you and side with Punahele Soriano. And really, the difference maker for me is not going to be the stand-up because Roman Kopylov is actually pretty technical when it comes to his stand-up ability and the way that he plots forward on the feet. He's very technical. He's very calculated. He doesn't have a lot of knockouts of, when it comes to UFC level guys. He's got that knockout prior to the UFC almost 4 years ago that you're seeing here. Abusben Alekhanov via corner stoppage almost 5 years ago. So against higher level competition, and also when you have guys who are outside of the UFC and then they come into the UFC and you see a significant power decrease and sometimes even their body decrease, you can maybe there was some exogenous stuff going on that led to maybe the knockouts, or maybe it was a caliber of competition, conversation as to why they were getting them and why they're not getting them now. But at the end of the day, we had talked about it before the card. MMA Guru, or maybe somebody else was talking about it with me. MMA Guru calls Punahele Soriano, calls him pillow hands, but he got that knockout over Dalcha Liangambula, who Dalcha Liangambula isn't top level talent inside of the UFC either. But Punahele has shown time and time again that he can land on people. He'll give one to take one, and maybe that's an O2, kind of that Samoan, Hawaiian style of background of fighters. Even if you're not from Hawaii, but you're still that Samoan type. We see a lot of the, not, I was almost said South African. That's not right. See the Australians and the New Zealanders who have that same mentality come in there and be able to throw and bang. Tai Tuivasa comes to mind. So Punahele Soriano, I think he's going to go out there, and if it's going to be a standing battle, he might have a slight decrease because of his power disadvantage. And I also don't think he's going to land as much as Roman Kopylov is. But Roman Kopylov has a glaring disadvantage when it comes to the ground, getting submitted by guys like Paul Roberson or Carl Robertson. I'm so out of it today. Getting submitted by guys like Carl Roberson at the end of the third round 3 years ago. I know he's taken some time off, but like you said, came back against Albert Duraev. And Albert Duraev exposed him a little bit when it got to the ground. He defended takedowns in the first round, and then as the fight went on, Roman Kopylov showed that he just doesn't have the grappling acumen to be able to contend against guys who have a strong grappling ability. What I don't know is if Puna Soriano is going to go out there and try to grapple Roman Kopylov. If he does, I think he's going to have a path to victory, and because of that clear path to victory, I'm going to pick Punahele Soriano. But if he decides to go out there and actually just strike with Roman Kopylov, he's doing himself a disservice because of the clear path to victory in the ground game. So doing himself a disservice there. I'm gonna have to go with him because of his ability to grapple. He hasn't done it in the past when he's had an advantage. Sometimes he'll go out there and he'll just strike because he's one of those guys that may have that advantage, but just standing and banging is more fun. So I'm going to still go with Puna. I think on the feet, he may not be as good as technical, but I think he's going to have a small power advantage. I think he's going to land. It's going to be at least close on the feet, and then he's got that glaring advantage on the ground. So Puna's the pick.
Do you believe that Punahele has pillow hands? Because I don't necessarily think so. Do you?
I mean, listen, he went back and forth with Brendan Allen when it came to the feet. And Brendan Allen is, I don't know. I don't think, I mean, he's got the knockout over Dushko Todorovic. He's got the knockout over Oscar Pichueta. He's got the 2 losses, Nick Maximov. Nick Maximov ultimately has shown that he goes out semi-easily now too. And Pua didn't put him away, but there was a lot of grappling involved in that. And that was actually an example of Punahele Soriano losing a grappling advantage. But look, Roman Kopylov doesn't have the level of grappling that Roman Kopylov doesn't have the level of grappling that Nick Maximov has, doesn't have the level of grappling that Brendan Allen has. So I'm not going to be as concerned. I don't know if I would say Puna has pillow hands, but there's a lot of times where he's landing what look like hard shots and people are able to withstand them. So, definitely I would say some question marks. I wouldn't tag him with the moniker of pillow hands yet, especially, I mean, listen, Dalchali Ngabula, he may not be that great, but he's definitely physically imposing looking. He's scary looking, and getting a win over that guy. I mean, again, he's not going to one hit knock somebody out and they're going to drop. He's going to hit somebody, they're going to be stunned. He's going to hit him again, they're going to be stunned, hit to the body, go back up top, hit him again, they're going to fall, then he's going to get on him. He's going to, start landing elbows, and he's going to get the TKO finish, but it's an accumulation of strikes thing. He's not putting him out one shot.
No, fair enough. I was just curious what your take was. All right, so next up we've got Dan 50K Ige versus Damon Jackson. And Dan Ige is on a little bit of a skid right now. And Damon Jackson is rising. His stock is rising. I'm leaning towards Damon Jackson, but I really want to hear the argument that you have to make, Tom. So why don't you kick this one off?
Okay, yeah, sure. So let me do it this way so that we can see at least somewhat of a full screen of who we're looking at here. Still a work in progress in terms of fitting everything on the screen that we need to have. This one's going to be tight. And I think I can almost call this right down to a T as far as what's going to happen. Dan Ige is going to go out in the first round. I think he's going to use his jab. Ultimately, Dan Ige is used to having a reach advantage here. He's a shorter guy by 4 or 5 inches. But in terms of the reach, it's 71 to 71.5 for Damon Jackson. Damon Jackson is going to specialize on the ground. He has a decent striking ability, just going out there and recently finishing Pat Sabatini. Pat Sabatini is a guy that, has had chin issues as of late, so looks less good, but Damon Jackson stepped in on short notice, got that fight after, I believe it might have been his sister or someone close to the family had passed away or had a traumatic event there. So Damon Jackson going out there with a lot of emotion and getting it done. That was great. But I think there's going to be a little bit down, a little bit more of like a coming back down to earth here. And this one is super hard to call because I think Dan Ige has some good anti-grappling against the top level of grapplers in the division. Dan Ige has a really good level of striking against the top level of strikers in the division. He's one of those guys that's good at a lot, but not great at any particular area. And then once you get to the top level of competition, that ends up being a problem. The question here is Damon Jackson top level competition? Damon Jackson has okay stand-up. He's put people away before. He doesn't have the knockout power that's just going to slump somebody. But like as we saw with Pat Sabatini, he landed a right hand. He landed a left hook. He hit another one. He got Pat on the ground. He was very calculated and he didn't overextend himself. He was conservative. He was very position over submission. Or actually, which is odd for him because Damon Jackson is usually a submission over position guy. He can go for submissions and he'll get them, but often he'll find himself in a bad situation. I've watched a lot of tape on both of these two guys, and they have inverse fighting styles. Dan Ige is extremely conservative. He's going to plot forward. He's going to use his jab. He's going to use some body work to try and open up the opponent and start landing, but ultimately Dan Ige is not a guy who's going to go out there and put you away. So I don't think this one is going to get finished by Dan Ige on the feet. Damon Jackson, I would say the same thing. I don't think it's going to get finished on the feet. Dan Ige has an extremely good chin. However, Dan Ige does show damage well. So I think it's going to go out there. And I think Dan Ige is going to get landed on, but also do a fair bit of landing. I think he's going to throw the higher volume in the first round, and he's going to be able to defend the takedowns of Damon Jackson. So I think Dan Ige is going to win a close round one. In round two, Damon Jackson is going to go out there, and Dan Ige has had a history of dropping second rounds in his career. He said it himself that sometimes he just doesn't come out with the same viciousness that he does in the first round. So I think Dan Ige is going to come out in their second round, somewhere around the middle towards the end. He's going to get taken down. Damon Jackson's going to be able to put some submissions on him, submission attempts. I think Dan Ige is going to get out of them, but maybe in what looks like serious trouble for one or two of them. On the feet, I think Dan Ige is going to have a little bit more advantage because he's going to be the guy plotting forward, throwing jabs. But also Damon Jackson's not someone who's just going to absolutely back up. So I think Damon's going to win the second round, mostly on his aggressiveness and his control time and his, maybe I wouldn't say control time. I would maybe venture to say more of his submission activity. And then finally, it's going to come down to that third round. Who's going to want it more? And ultimately, because, this a lot of times can come down to position and grappling and the difference maker there. I don't think Dan Ige is going to sit down Damon Jackson. I think Damon Jackson might sit down Dan Ige because we've seen Dan Ige get dropped and then pop right back up in a litany of other fights. He got knocked down a couple of times by Mosar Evloev. Josh Emmett sat him down a couple of times. Chan Sung Jung took advantage of him on the ground when it got there. And then obviously the Calvin Kattar fight where he just plotted forward and got annihilated. So if I'm Dan Ige, as the fight goes on, I get a little bit more nervous. Damon Jackson is a guy, he trains at Fortis MMA. I believe he's from Dallas, but I think he's used to training at altitude, and as a guy who, as the fight goes on, he doesn't necessarily tire, and he has really good grappling endurance. So I know this has been a long breakdown, but there's a lot that goes into it. With all of that being said, I'm going to have to go with Damon Jackson ever so slightly because it's a grappling advantage. And if he's throwing up submissions and he's trying to get there and he's trying to get it done, I think the judges may see it. But I think ultimately it's going to come down to that third round. It's going to be a close, vicious fight. What do you think, Keith?
I don't even know how to follow that up, Tom. That was one of the most comprehensive, best breakdowns I've heard you or anybody give, especially with such a tight fight. And like I said before, I was leaning towards Damon Jackson. You've completely sold me on him. There's a lot of glaring stuff that you pointed out for Dan Ige, especially like dropping the second round. The only part where I somewhat disagree with you is I think that Damon Jackson may finish this fight in the second with a submission because of the aggressiveness and submission over position, like you were saying, just with how aggressive he is trying to lock stuff up. But you got me 100% on the Damon Jackson side. And what's his money line? I'm having a hard time reading it. It's small on my phone screen.
Dead even. It's minus 110 across the board. And what I will say too about your point is, I could definitely see, Damon Jackson getting a takedown, going for the submission, going for something like a guillotine or something like that. And then ultimately, maybe being on the back, going for the submission, falling off a rear naked choke, then Dan Ige ending up on top, landing some ground and pound to end the round. And that maybe could happen in the second or the third. And then now we're sitting there wondering there was some damage landed when he fell off, but how much does that submission count for, and where do the chips lie? So I think this is going to go to decision, and I think that's your safest bet. But
Yeah,
I don't know if I would bet actual money on this one because it could go such a variety of different ways. It is such a good stylistic matchup. There is that discrepancy in the level of competition. I mean, again, you're talking about Dan Ige. He's won in his last 5, but Calvin Kattar's got the win over Gavin Tucker, which isn't anything to scoff at.
Murderers row.
Chan Sung Jung, Josh Emmett, who's now fighting for the title, and Moisar Evloev, who's going to fight for the title after that. So the level of competition for Damon Jackson, Pat Sabatini is pretty good, but Dan Argueta, we saw. I like Dan Argueta, but Dan Argueta was coming in on short notice, and that went to a decision. Like if I'm Damon Jackson and I'm going to be fighting the top level, like I think he left that fight, even though he won, almost as a loss because of how well he didn't perform against short notice Dan Argueta, who's making his UFC debut. Kim Wellkirk, not a great win in hindsight. Charles Hossa, not a bad win, but back and forth there. I think top level competition, you're not going to see the finishes out of Damon Jackson. I think Dan Ige is a jiu-jitsu black belt in his own right, and I think he's a position over submission guy, and he's going to keep himself safe, number one priority. So I like decision in this fight, over 2.5 rounds if that's what it is, or whatever it ends up being.
Yeah, I mean, I could rock with that. I think I'm going to stake a unit on Damon Jackson, but I have a feeling this is going to be one of those fights that, when it comes down to it, Damon Jackson tends to fade late, guys, and Fuego. Fair enough.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. As much as having your back against the wall and being desperate may be a negative thing too. You know what I mean? That may not be. Listen, this one is really too close to call. I would have to give the edge towards Damon Jackson because I think he's got the ground game. And at least if it's going to go to decision, you got to cater to what the judges are going to see. And I think the judges are going to see that, attempt to finish the fight from Damon Jackson more than they're going to see it from Dan Ige. But then maybe Dan Ige comes out with a more vicious attitude. And when it's in those 50-50 decisions, when it's or 50-50 positions, and he's in those close scrambles, maybe that's his opportunity to go in there and land some extra volume. So this is a close one, man. This is a close one.
Yeah, I could see it being one of those ones that when it comes down to the cards afterwards, you have half the people online going, this is a robbery, and we'll see what happens. This is going to be a tough one. Ooh. Apologies tight, too.
It's close, man. It's close. Like I said, I don't think Dan Ige is going to knock out Damon Jackson. I don't think vice versa. So, and I think on the feet, I would give the advantage to Ige. But then again, Damon Jackson fights similarly on the feet with the reach, working the body, using the jab. It reminds me of Chan Sung Jung to a degree with less power. So I don't know. Yep, we can see you, brother. So I don't know what's gonna happen here. Advantage, I have to, or what I was gonna say against Chan Sung Jung. Chan Sung Jung picked apart Dan Ige at his own game there on the feet. So it's a really close one. I'm gonna have to. You know what? No, I feel like mentally I want to go Jackson, but my heart is pulling me towards Ige. I think Ige finds a way to get it done. He's been in 5 rounders with top level competition. If nothing less, maybe he got the rub against guys like Moisar Evloev and stuff like that. I don't know. It's tight, but I think I'm leaning on Ige now.
I'm going to stick with Damon Jackson. I understand why you're leaning that way. This is a tough one, but I'm going to stay true with Damon Jackson. That's what I was feeling before you started talking, before you gave your argument, before you really brought me over to that side. I was a little conflicted. But now I'm 100%, with Damon Jackson, and to hear you flip back is a little disheartening, but I'm going to stick with Damon Jackson in this one. I think, there's a chance he locks something up, and, to win Fuego's point before, and thank you for always being with us in Fuego and staying active in our chat. Appreciate it. Even if Damon Jackson can find a way to win 1 and 2, and not get finished in 3, then he's won the fight right there. Unless, of course, there's something funky going on. What was that guy that scored Patty's fight all weird for Patty and not
Douglas something.
Yeah, maybe that guy's working this upcoming weekend, but we'll find out. All right, main event. Kelvin Gastelum versus Nassouradine Imavov. I think Kelvin Gastelum's washed. I don't think he's the same guy that, brought the fight to Izzy, however many years ago that was now that we're in 2023. And I think Nassouradine Imavov is on the come up. Good all around fighter. I just really, the big thing for me here is I think Kelvin Gastelum's pretty washed. We're coming up on an hour here, so I don't want to take too long. But what do you think, Tom? You think Kelvin Gastelum's washed, or you think Nassouradine Imavov is? I mean, the odds kind of speak for themselves here.
Yeah, this one's hard for me, specifically because Kelvin Gastelum has all of the pieces to be a really strong fighter, but hasn't. I don't want to say doesn't, but at least hasn't come out and looked like that guy that he could be in quite some time. He's got the win over Ian Heinisch where he displayed his grappling ability. But Nassouradine Imavov is a guy who has a lot of submission wins on his record. He's going to use that length, having a 3.5 inch reach advantage here. He's going to be a much bigger guy that Kelvin's used to. Kelvin's used to not being the biggest guy in the fight. But you just look at like the fight against Joaquin Buckley where, people, and this is a point of contention for me because a lot of people have been talking about the fact that Nassouradine Imavov faded in that Joaquin Buckley fight towards the end. And if you actually go back and you look at the stats, he didn't really fade as much as Joaquin Buckley poured it on. He averaged, Imavov, this is about 30 to 50 strikes per round. And was right in line with it. I think he had 47 in that third round against Joaquin Buckley. And Joaquin Buckley went out there, and Joaquin Buckley was the guy who was laying it on because he had just lost the previous 2 rounds because Imavov is a smart fighter. Maybe not a fun fighter from that regard, but he's a smart fighter. He was up 2 rounds. He's not going to do anything to overcompensate and potentially lose. So in this fight, Kelvin Gastelum against Nassouradine Imavov, Gastelum's strength is using his wrestling, but he doesn't use his wrestling. He's a jab-first fighter, and in a fight where you're going to have a 4.5 inch reach advantage and a much you're the smaller guy, I don't think using the jab is going to be a particularly strong path to success. Imavov is a very technical fighter. He's going to go out there. He's going to plot forward on you. If it comes to the ground, he's going to be strong enough on the ground to not be able to get bullied by Kelvin Gastelum. I think it's a close fight. It's hard to call because you don't know what version of Kelvin Gastelum you're going to get, but based off of what we've seen recently, I can't have a lot of confidence that this is the fight that he's just going to come in shape, turned around. He's really a 170er, if we're being honest, fighting at 185 pounds. The reason behind that has been speculated that he doesn't want to get on a diet, or maybe he's not dedicated enough. I'm not sure that that's necessarily it. I think he maybe just feels good at 85 and doesn't want to cut and is concerned about how he may feel after that cut. I think Kelvin Gastelum thus far has really shown an ability to be durable, which is probably the most consistent thing that we can say about him. Especially he's not cutting a lot of weight, so you don't have to worry about the blood being drained from his head and being I guess that is the positive about somebody who's not going to be dieted down and super lean. They're not going to be dehydrated. And I don't think Nassouradine Imavov is going to take him down and have that power to win from ground and pound. Again, now that's a lot of the time where Nassouradine gets his wins is when people are on the ground and he gets that TKO from a clinch position or from a crucifix position. I don't think he's going to get Kelvin Gastelum down there and in that bad of a position. So I think Imavov is going to win on the feet. I don't think Kelvin Gastelum is going to be able to out-wrestle him and get a decision the way he wants to. Both these guys are ground and pound finishers when they do finish, and I think Imavov is going to be able to avoid that. He's bigger, he's stronger, he's longer. I would say Imavov by decision is probably your safest bet.
Yeah, I saw in Fuego put in the chat. Yeah, exactly. You can't find a reason to bet on either one of these guys, and I have to agree because Imavov is minus 240, 250. And I'm not confident enough to bet in him. And then Kelvin Gastelum, even though he's got a tantalizing line, I just don't think he's going to pull out the W this weekend. So,
listen, I would feel comfortable. I mean, I'm probably taking Imavov by decision.
Yeah, it's a solid bet. But in terms of what's on this card, I think you have some really good bets, and I don't see that being up at like the top tier of. What I'll be throwing a couple of units on versus maybe like a half unit. Yeah, I'll side with you with the Imavov by decision pick and stake a little bit there. But, I think most of my other picks or our picks in general on this card, because I think we had a couple of super locks here today. But I think those are a lot safer than this one, which, I'm a little bit more shaky on. I just not confident in it. But all right, well, that is the final fight on the main event of this card. So we can run through our pick rundown real quick. So, all right.
How to get in that transition?
All good. So for prelim locks, I've got Alan Nascimento, and who was yours? Like I said, I'm having some technical difficulty. Who's fighting Mr. Flick again this weekend? Is that Charles Johnson?
Yeah, Charles Johnson is taking on Jimmy Flick.
Okay, and then I've got
125 pounds.
All right, and then I've got Umar Nurmagomedov over Raoni Barcelos, Ketlen Vieira over Raquel Pennington. Basically doing this from memory at this point. Who do we got next?
Let me see if I can help you out here. Oh, this is not what they would call good TV.
It's okay. Punahele Soriano
Here we
over Kopylov, Damon Jackson over Dan Ige, and I'm gonna go with Nassouradine Imavov over Kelvin Gastelum. All right, who do you got, Tom?
For me, I'm gonna do. I'll probably do a unit on Charles Johnson. Unit on Charles Johnson to win a decision. I don't know. Jimmy Flick has been off for some time. Unit on Charles Johnson. Give me a unit on Dan Argueta. Give me a unit on Alan Nascimento. Give me 2 units on Nurmagomedov by decision. Vieira and Pennington. I'll take a unit for that one to go to decision. Give me a unit on Soriano. I'll do a unit on the Ige Jackson going to decision, and I'll do a unit and a half on Imavov to win a decision.
All right.
How about that?
Right. I didn't get mine, but I'll post mine to Twitter, how many I'm going to throw on each. Also, a nice parlay between the Eubanks fight to go to the Sajara Eubanks decision and the Pennington Vieira fight to go the distance. So not for Eubanks to win by decision, but, for both of them to go that far. So solid episode. Sorry about the technical difficulties again on my end, Tom, and the people at home. I don't know what it is. You spend a couple of weeks not doing an episode, and all of a sudden the computer takes a. What'd you say?
You get out of form. I get it.
It's my computer, bro. My computer's out of form. It's about to get out of form against a wall. I don't know. We're going to find out what happens.
It was just the holiday season. Ask Santa if he can make a special run, drop you off a laptop. We got a show to do basically every week. Yeah. Get the elves on the horn.
Dude, Santa's not fucking real. Stop that.
All right, asshole.
All right.
You trying to get us demonetized with the cursing?
Yo, we're not even monetized yet, which brings me to my point. We need more subscribers. So please subscribe if you like our content, and you want to support us. We really appreciate it. Like the video if you like the video, and we helped you with our picks this week. And comment. As you saw, we interacted with some old friends, some new friends down in the chat. I like that. What's that guy's name? SK ? With I think it's like Chadwick Boseman is this picture. That guy's funny. Can you see me? Yeah, we see you, pal. Yes, we see you. Who is that? Who's his picture? I don't know who that is. Maybe I'm behind on something here. SKD ? But what's up, dude? Nice to meet you. So if you want to, interact with us, definitely talk to us down in the chat. Follow us on our personal Twitters. They're right underneath us. Just in case you're listening, at Pickin Keith for me and at Pickin Fights Tom for Tom, at _Pickin Winners for the general, everybody's out there with our football, lacrosse, all that good stuff. It's Sunday. I'll give you a football pick right now. The Steelers -2.5 for an absolute lock at home. Mike Tomlin's never finished a season below 500. And anytime he's coaching a team that's below 500, he's like 47-20 against the spread. So I locked in the Steelers today. Got that pick from the boys over at Pickin 6. Check them out. All right. That's all I got. Thank you, Tom. Thanks for being here. And thanks, everybody, for watching.
All right. Now, thank you for watching.